Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first
Yeah,
off,
just speak loudly for the
oh, that's
recording.
right. You wanted me to. Okay. Do we need to turn this on then?
It is on. It's just like
Testing one.
yep.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, first off, I wanted to say Sue and I have lived all over the country, on the East Coast, the West Coast. We were in the near South, in Cincinnati for a time, and we love Minneapolis. I mean, it's a great city. I envision us staying here for a long time, and it's places like these that I love about Minneapolis, the Majors and Quinn. It's my favorite bookstore in the country, or in the country, maybe not the country, but in the city for sure. And it's got, I was just walking down, there's 5, they've used and they have new books. I just saw Keith Richards' book, Life, which is a great book that he wrote 10 years ago or something. There's 5 copies there, so, and one of them is probably used. So when you get, when we get done with this, please take a look around, pick up some books. I just found one of my favorite poets has a new book out. I didn't know, and I just found it in the poetry section, and it might be used, which would be great. So anyway, I wanted to say that about Majors and Quinn, and so thank you guys for taking me on tonight. And then thank you guys for coming. I see a lot of faces I know and people that have helped me along this journey. So thank you. Thanks for showing up. It means a ton. So I thought, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do tonight, but I thought I'd read 2 sections that are about 8 minutes each. And then I thought we could go from there. I'll read a section and we'll see where it takes us, and then I'll read one more. So it's not going to be too painful. And the first section I thought I'd read would be about, since it is a book that primarily takes place on the tennis tour, I thought I'd start by reading something that takes place during a tennis match. And so just to introduce it a bit. So my protagonist, his name is Richard Blanco. He's at Wimbledon, and he's in the quarterfinals for the first time in his life. He's a journeyman. He's playing the great Boris Becker, who he's never beaten in 17 tries. And he had a chance to beat him on day 1, and he kind of blew it. But there was a rain delay that transferred into the following day. So this takes place on day 2 when the sky's clear and he's going back out to try to beat Becker for the first time in 17 tries. But in the interim, during the night, a lot has happened. His agent, because this is a really good big moment for him, his agent has worked on getting him some sponsorship deals. So he's got a hat that he's going to be wearing, and he's got new shoes. So that's one thing. His stepfather, who's been battling cancer, has died the night before, and he was very close to his stepfather. So that plays into the night. He suffers from some mental illnesses, Blanco does, and when things aren't going the way they should, these things seem to come up in his head. So he made some mistakes the night before that he regrets already, that he's taking onto the court. He's thinking about Brody, is his stepfather's thinking about him, and then on top of that, the grief that he feels about his stepfather dying also triggers the grief that he's held on about his dad dying 4 or 5 years before. So that's where we begin. So I'll start. All right. How does it feel walking onto center court to a packed house? The heart stirs. It's a tremendous honor. There's nothing quite like it for a tennis player. All that tradition, the shades of green so pleasing to the eye, the ghosts of the ones that came before you. But then habit takes over. You tighten your shoelaces, you cinch the bag over your shoulder, you channel your warrior self. Then you're escorted toward the tunnel. There's nothing like it, that walk. Today, Miles walks over with a pleasant face on. Need the arm, young man. What's this? I watch him slip an armband up past grasps my left hand. A little something for Brody, he says, securing the cloth around my biceps. But it's black. Miles winks. I think the members will let the color scheme slide this one time. Then we're cleared. Center court on the brightest of days. Everything outdoors like it was the day before, but now in vivid green technicolor. The moment I feel the sunshine on my back, there is this intelligible roar. I raise an arm. The noise surges higher. Brody, 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 the crowd chants. I search the sky, that blue emptiness. Being down, the other thing that's going on is that he's down. In men's tennis, especially in the pro level, holding your serve is really important. And he's down 3 break points to begin this 5th and final set. So he's feeling, there's a lot of pressure, because if he loses the game, he's probably lost the match. So, being down love 40 in the second game of a deciding set poses a unique set of quandaries. Errors are to be entirely avoided, nerves kept in check. This goes for temerity too. A player facing 3 break points must think cautiously bold. In mountaineering, if there's a substantial gap on the ridge, the spirited climber studies the point of departure and where his foot will come down on the other side. Then he leaps. No second guessing, he just goes. This might mean serving up the middle, even if that plays into your opponent's strength. What tennis comes down to is essentially this. Is your service game more powerful than the brunt force of his return? This bright morning, bugs flit about. Laughter spills down the aisles like slinky toys. I'm amped up. The new shoes feel comfy nice. There's the hat. It's like a light bulb on my head, white as snow. Very doable with the money we're talking about. And the color is a dead ringer for Trey's sundress. Yes, a brand new day. Time, 5th set. The score is 1-0, Mr. Becker. Mr. Blanco serves at love 40. Only when the crowd quiets do I let the ball go into the azure sky. The toss is an extension of my arm, right of center, 10 o'clock. As the ball reaches its full height, I fling my whole lot into the air. Legs thrust toward blue, pelvic slide open, shoulders rotate up and around. The ball spins wildly away. The linesman signals good. The thing about tension is it amplifies with each point won, so you do what you know. You control where the eyes wander, called oxygen, bring time down. I resist eyeing my box and target the middle. The ball buffets off dry, caked dirt and skids low. Becker flails like he's swinging a cricket bat. Then he barks German at his racket, like it's the damn stick's fault. But winning the first 2 points means squat if you lose the next one, so I press on. At the line, straightening the strings, I decide to go into the body right to left as the glare goes. Instinct tells you where to go. Becker can't get his sluggish feet out of the way. Deuce. Okay, then, all squared up. It's anyone's game now. But what's he thinking? What's he want? He wants it out wide. He expects heat. Maybe I'll surprise him. Throw it at noon and a little over my head. I'll get my legs under the ball, really thump it with spin. Here goes nothing. The uncoil. I feel a purity in the way the ball jumps off the strings. An auditory pop, like I cracked the algorithm wide open. Becker misses long. The twitchiness from before slips into a relaxed tenacity, like my insides are a dog gnawing on a bone. I place the serve wide. Game, Mr. Blanco, 1-1. I place the serve wide. Game, Mr. Blanco, 1-1, 5th set. Balls change ends. I can't resist peeking at my entourage, but it's Trey my eyes linger on. She brings a vogue missing since the Russian decamped to the Hollywood Hills. And Brody's seat? His is a bicycle at the scene of the accident, spray painted white with flowers heaped around the tires. All players have idiosyncrasies. Between points, Carlos Sanchez studies his stringing pattern like a classical guitarist. Hewitt tugs the underwear bunched between his butt cheeks, and Becker opens and closes his mouth like a fish taking in oxygen, especially when he's nerved up, like now. His first serve is a clunker that gets stuck in the net fabric. The closest ball kid grabs at the suspended ball, but it won't budge. The fans eat this sort of thing up. Now the boy takes the ball with both hands. Finally, he dislodges it to applause. Becker throws his arms up like this beats all. Fittingly, his second serve finds the mesh. Scheisse! He berates his stick again, and they cheer. Get on the Brit's ugly side and watch out. Becker puts another ball into the lattice, dittos the second, love 30. We play another point and another miss by the German. He wanders the baseline now, inspecting balls, mumbling to himself, out of sorts. He kind of reminds me of me. Then his sorry ass double faults the game away. Mr. Blanco leads 2-1 fifth set. In tennis, change comes quickly. Momentum steals across the fields faster than weather over London skies. With Becker coming undone, I rattle off 3 of the next 4 games. In 37 minutes, I'm 4 points from winning. I'm feeling it. Not a tense nerve, all systems go. I'm so giddy, keeping composed during the changeover proves problematic. I put a towel over my head, center court, a symphonic babble, and grin. Now's the time to practice relaxation techniques. Or read over my notes. Just don't think about the hundreds of thousands tuned in homes and apartments across Europe, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Christchurch, Tel Aviv, Cape Town, across the wide swath of the South Atlantic, flying low over Uruguay's fractured coast, around the Horn, picking up speed along the Andes, then Santiago, Costa Rica, Acapulco, the Baja Peninsula, Southern California, Los Angeles, home. Try not to think about those bare-bone clubs in Budapest and outside Moscow where truly hungry players with nothing to lose huddle around 17-inch black and whites, the pitcher snowier than a Siberian winter. Try not to think about what the BBC's John Barrett is saying about your chances, or the helter-skelter atmosphere of a Clapham betting shop. Try not to think about those sports fanatics, men mostly, who watch televised sports for its esoteric rules, its mannerisms, its order and justice, its violence, its incontrovertible conclusiveness. Boy men who love drama, any drama, as long as it isn't their own. Try not to think about how boring and meaningless life would be without our sports columns, our sports ticker, our sports betting, our ESPN. Try not to think about the first time you came here with Dad. To you, a teenager in size 12 shoes, center court was the Grand Canyon. It was magnificent. What a trip that was. The blooming English countryside, a string quartet playing Schubert at Albert Hall, competing in the Wimbledon Juniors for the first time. Did I really think of defaulting on Independence Day? Try not to think. Time. Mr. Blanco leads 5-2, fifth set. Any questions? I could talk about.
So what I want to know is, were you this person, like when you were playing, did you think these things, and that's how they fit into your book, or?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely probably thought way too much when I played tennis, for sure. So, in that sense, the things what Blanco's going through are things that I definitely struggled with as a tennis player. I would start slow, which is all mental, right? But in my head, I was a slow starter, so then I would basically give the set to the other guy, and then I'd always usually play one good set, and then who knows what would happen the third. So yeah, there's definitely some parts of him that I gathered from my background for sure.
And why did you pick Becker?
That's a good question. Nothing. I like Becker. I think it was more when I think back of playing that I had. There's some guys I just couldn't beat for whatever reason. Either they were a lefty that put that ball on a return right where I didn't want it, or maybe there was a personality problem that when I was younger, personality would really bother me. But there were people that got under my skin for sure, and so I thought I needed somebody to be that person for Blanco, and I thought Becker worked out great because he's when this takes place in 1996, he's no longer the Boris Becker that had won 3 Wimbledons. He's on his way out anyway, or getting near his way out. So it made sense if I changed history a bit and had Richard Blanco play him in the quarterfinals. Spoiler alert: Blanco loses. So yeah,
I don't really have a question, but I have a comment. But I really like that passage. It really, it's just a lovely contrast between talking about not thinking and then all the thinking. And it just really, yeah.
well, thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
It was fun to write. Yeah, I mean, as a writer, there are some things that are more fun to dive into, and that was a fun couple paragraphs to write, for sure. You know, I kind of like the how things kept coming back to just trying to think, but all you can do is not stop thinking.
How long did it take you to write that? That part? Was that in one sitting, or?
Well, I think the concept, would come up in one sitting, for sure, and then it's just a matter of fleshing it out. It may take a while, for sure, as well. So, it seems like most of my ideas come right away, but then it takes a long time to actually make sense of them or make them work.
Do you have to get Becker's permission to use his name? And
The lawyer in the house.
yeah. I don't know anything about the writing side, so
As far as I know, from what my publisher said, as long as it's nothing slanderous, you're okay with portraying real people in fictitious situations. So I definitely kept I was trying to respect him as a human being, even though he's a character, as I wrote it, and I tried to be very. I've watched him play so much. I tried to think about some of the things he does in the court and be true to that. But as far as I know, I'm good. I would love for him to read it, and then like there'd be some like him sue me, because that would be good. Good for sales.
yeah. Did you send it to him?
I'm working on it. I've got a couple contacts, but it's just not easy. I'm working on it.
Did you consider not using Boris Becker and just doing another fictitious tennis player?
No.
Oh, really?
He was always this. I don't know. I guess the next section I read, there's a couple movie stars in it that I kind of bring to life. I don't know. I kind of had fun bringing Becker to life again. So no, I didn't really think about that. There are other times in the book. There are other characters, of course, that play tennis that, they're fictitious. But, in this case, I felt like it was going to be a bigger deal when he blows it, if it is someone of that stature.
Yeah, recognizable.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. So when I was reading the book, Richard seemed to solve or deal with a lot of the problems when he was playing. I mean, it almost seems like, it's just like what you were reading there, the passage, don't think. All these things were going through his head. Is that similar to what you felt kind of when you're playing, dealing with issues? Is that when you dealt with them? Is that, was the tennis court a place where those issues got resolved or made them worse?
No, but those issues would come up. At my worst, my issues would come up on the tennis court, and if I resolved them, it was always in a negative way. So I was never able to. Maybe once in a while, be able to get past that and still play at a level I wanted to play. Usually, it just made me go this way, and it kind of does for him too.
Yeah.
Whereas a guy like a McEnroe and Agassi, some of these guys can get really irritated and upset, and it makes their game go like this.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
That wasn't me.
No, I thought that was good how you did that, because you really felt that experience.
No, thank you.
I wanted to ask you about his name.
Okay.
So, I've thought about this a little bit, and so Blanco, I mean, is it where, you clearly, how long did you take to think of his name and the significance of the name? How much was that in your head when you were writing the book about, supporting what his name was? So is it the whiteness of him and mostly a white sport, and he is an undeveloped person who needs to develop color and subtlety.
I love that. I'll go with that.
And you know, so is that so is he sort of a blank slate, or is it white noise? I mean, that passage you just read, he's flooded with this white noise of, you know, and it undermines his, you know, what he's trying to do. And I couldn't help noticing that you dressed in a white T-shirt. And then there's the white of Wimbledon and all that stuff. So I anyway.
It's a deep thinker, Jim. I love it. Originally it was the white. He was the white Dick. That was Richard Blanco. And so one of the things I say that because when I started writing the book, my dad had just passed away, and I definitely was really angry with the world. And it came out in the book, my first draft, where I did this, started as a thesis. And I thought Mona Power, she was signed in, I thought she might be one of my thesis professors that signed up. I think she's here. But it was, the first thing they said is, he is not likable at all. Like they really were put off by his sexism and all this stuff. So the name stuck, but as I went through more and more versions of the book, he softened. He became more. I think he's colorful, no matter what. I hadn't thought about that part about white versus color, but he definitely became softer and more, I hope, likable. Because I think as I grieved my dad's death, I became more my old self, and those are kind of the books I like anyway. I usually like reading about people I like, so it was a lot more natural to make him likable. But initially, it was definitely something that I think the other professor won't even talk to me anymore. It was that bad. So, all right. Well, let me read another passage. So this takes place. Takes place 2 days after Wimbledon, and he's back home, and he's in Los Angeles, and he's at the funeral of Brody Simmons. And I kind of mentioned before, he's got some mental challenges that he's dealing with, and this is still, it's the middle of the book, but these things are starting to come out. And the one thing I should mention ahead of time, because I'm not sure if because it's in a couple pages before, his cousin Remy also got him stoned when they were at the cemetery. So this is not something he does a lot anymore, but he's also high as well. So he's in Los Angeles, and he's at the service, I guess you call it, after the cemetery. Is that the service? Okay. My eyes latch onto the glittery sky, knocking back the last of my vodka tonic. Then it's down the steps around back, past the infinity pool and tennis court, to the guest house where Remy lives. This is where Dad lived the last 3 months of his life. If there was a humane way to go, it was Brody's stronghold in Pacific Palisades. They had Dad's jazz records and books flown in. There was a 24-hour staff on call. Brody and Mom made sure Dad was comfortable, especially at the end. The biggest obstacle after he died, what nearly sunk the plan before it had a chance to fly, was transporting a person dead from a communicable disease overseas. Apparently, the airlines worried the corpse might explode or leak mid-flight. It wasn't like an involved dad and strapped down in coach, but AIDS was a sensitive topic back then. Brody saved the day. He knew the CEO of the now defunct West Coast Airways. After Brody put the man's son in his next horror flick, Dad was as good as gold, on his way home in a sealed casket, wearing his Sunday best. Remy's room smells an amalgam of stale reefer and cologne. I refill my glass from his private stash, peruse the medicine cabinet, and then stare at his guitar collection, the shiny Ibanez's, Fenders, Gibsons, and Les Pauls. Eventually, my eyes fall prey to the framed Pamela Anderson nudes from her various Playboy spreads. Remy's obsessed with PA. Her initials are tattooed under his clavicle, below his clavicle. He's attended her premieres. He spent a summer at the beach watching her through high-powered binoculars doing Baywatch shoots. He's even met Pam. By the way, this is written prior to Me Too, so just bear with me. Remy was bouncing at a heavy metal bar on Lancashire when she and Tommy Lee showed up one night. He pretended to have a seizure on the sidewalk. The way Remy explained it, his acting chops were stellar. 911 was called. Tommy Lee took pictures with a disposable camera, and Pam held Remy in her arms and told him to hang in there, that help was on its way. Then Remy kissed her. Not full on, not like they were rolling around naked in the surf, but with sweet, tender lips, his on hers. Then he got up and brushed himself off. He apologized to Pam for any misunderstandings, then held out his hand to her hubby. Remy quit the bouncing date that night. I collapse on his waterbed, nearly toppling my drink, then wait for the lapping eddies to subside. How does he sleep on this contraption? This bed is like being tethered to the waves in a sea with no end. I dig my phone out. I should check in with Heather. No, she'll ask questions. She might suspect I'm under the influence, and I haven't used since the Russian dumped my ass. Instead, I dial Trey for like the 6th time in 2 days. Do you ever pick up? Just joking. Christ, what a day. But seriously, I need a woman's opinion. Is wearing a revealing dress at your husband's funeral considered bad taste? Anyway, if you're not in jail or dead, call me. I top off my cocktail and step back under. One other thing. And this has nothing to do with it, but just as for more for the sky is a metallic orange because there's fires nearby. So it really doesn't mean anything, but then this next line will make more sense. I top off my cocktail and step under Lucy in the sky with diamonds. Walking past the tennis court, I notice the clay swept clean, but the line's not. A detail that would never get past the Broadmeister. He loved his tennis like his bimbos in distress and those campy horror flicks he produced. Speaking of bodacious blondes, Daisy Sunshine still snoozes by the swimming pool. A boy around 13 pokes at her saline mounds with a twig while his friends egg him on. Guys, come on, I tell them. Have a little respect, okay? In London, at Dad's funeral, this Dickens-worthy fog settled in. Lugubrious bells clang one after the other, slow and somber. The scene felt baroque, eerie, so English in tone. Here, the bar's in full swing. People mingle like it's a cocktail party. Remy talks with Dustin Hoffman. He's probably giving his Ravens versus Crows dissertation. Hoffman looks at me and swings an imaginary backhand. Then he taps a dial on his watch and spreads his fingers wide. 5 minutes. I spot Mom across the pool. She strides toward a waiter holding a tray of champagne flutes, picking off one as she goes. She drains the glass, then pitches it in the pool. Then she turns in her lace dress. Mom's disappointed, not because she wasn't caught, but that her present no longer receives the admiration it once drew. Our eyes meet. Can I mourn my Brody with one teeny tiny drink? We've met by the cabana. How many have you had? One, I swear. Mom fluffs her dark hair, then flashes a smile, the way she does when she's lying. Fine, 2, if you're a stickler for detail. But that's it. No more for this girl. She notices my drink. You need a pick-me-up? Just ask. I don't do that anymore. She sticks her finger in my cocktail, then gives it a suck. Oh, that's right, Mr. Deadhead. You're in control. Do we have to do this here? Mom fidgets with the cross, visible in the cranny between her surgically altered breasts. She's done her eyes so many times, her expression is slightly deranged, as if she's always hearing faint applause from some far-off stage. Oh, look, it's Anna Nicole Smith taking a nap. That's Daisy Sunshine, Mom. Who wears a miniskirt to a funeral? I could ask Mom about her dubious wardrobe choice, but hold my tongue. She doesn't know about Brody and his favorite female lead. Even Dawn Michaels, who's approaching fast, doesn't have the heart to tell her. You look good enough to eat, Richard. Dawn and I Euro-kiss. A long time ago, she resembled Faye Dunaway. That was before the chin tucks and facelifts, the rhinoplasty. Now Dawn can't even blink. Remy got Richard stoned, Mom says. It's no big deal. Dawn attempts a smile, but her skin won't budge. You're in pain, Richard. Anyone can see that. But anesthetizing your problems won't make them go away. She touches Mom's arms. Mom's arm. Diane, Samuel asked that I pass on a message. He said he's watching you. Samuel is Mom's shrink. I haven't had a drink. Have I, dear? This is how it is with Mom and me. She's been in and out of several discreet and terribly expensive rehab clinics. The only thing I've seen her drink this afternoon is a Perrier. Dawn's not so sure. Your fealty is noted, but do I look like a dumbass? Before I can respond, and it's near impossible, reading a plastic surgery freak, another waxen creature approaches. She whispers in Dawn's ear, "Nice catching up, Richard." We watch the gossipers thread the crowd. What do you think of Dawn's lips? That look is so in right now. You are so much more beautiful than that. Mom looks toward the pool, glimmering like Goldschlager in the afternoon light. Her mouth relaxes like the compliment stuck. I slurp my drink, eyeing the crowd. She pulls a cigarette from her cleavage. Do you have a light? That's right. The professional tennis player doesn't smoke cigarettes. I heard you came out okay with the lawyers. All the money in the world won't bring him back. She gazes up at me. You know what it's like. You don't know what it's like losing a spouse. I remember when Dad died. He wasn't everything you think he was. He was vain. He could be cruel. His expectations of me. Why are we talking about your father? Mom looks past me when her face brightens. He's here. Peter Bogdanovich stands over the appetizer table holding a plate. He wears an ascot under his velour dining jacket and these bizarre yellow-tinted glasses. How do I look? She runs her tongue over her teeth. Any lipstick showing? You look great. She hands me the unlit cigarette like I'm the paid help. Wish me luck. Break a leg, Mom. Before she heads over, Mom raises the dress's hem as if she's wearing a gown and stepping out of a limousine while paparazzi shoot her point blank. Peter, she calls out, I'm so glad you came. Dustin strolls over. His crooked smile gives him away. I'm not hitting with you, Hoffman. I got enough on my plate. But my game is in a... Anyone do a good Dustin Hoffman? But my game is in a real funk, and every time we hit, I play as good as the tour guys. I give him an incredulous eye roll. The lower tier man, not you. You're a fucking god. Mom's laugh echoes across the swimming pool. You hear about Bogdanovich's new film? No. Mom's laugh echoes across the swimming pool. You hear about Bogdanovich's new film? Dustin looks over and sees Mom's arm draped over the director's shoulder. You fix my backhand, and I'll see what I can do. Noon tomorrow, the Riviera Club. Okay, smartass? You want me to drive all the way over here. What else are you gonna do? Smoke more of Remy's pot? Does the whole world know? That I'm timing. By the way, he says, I cried when you lost. I'm touched, Dustin. He thumps me in the chest. I had money riding on you, you piece of shit. So yeah, dialogue. Yeah, any questions about that?
So what's the context of having these stars and semi-stars in the story?
Well, I think in Dustin Hoffman's case, I just know that he was, and probably still is, an avid tennis player, so I thought it fit nicely. And from some of my research, I had heard that he liked playing with guys like this, you know, and he could afford to pay him to play with him. Yeah, Bogdanovich, I always just found him really kind of an interesting character, you know, so, and I like his movies. So I just thought it would be kind of perfect. You know, his mom, she's an actress and she's out of work, and it's a lot of it's because of her age, and and she has got some addiction problems. And so I thought it just kind of worked interesting. It would be interesting if he showed up, and I didn't have to do too much work with. It's not a. You know, the Bogdanovich part is not a huge part of the book, so I felt like it was easier to go that way than it was to like try to introduce somebody that's going to disappear anyway from the story. It's kind of a thinking.
Did all that come from you, or were you thinking of reference? I mean, which is completely fine, by the way. Were you thinking of references, or boy, this is going to be a scene like the scene in The Graduate?
Oh.
or this is gonna be a takeoff on the loved one, you know, or something like that. Like, were you thinking that, or did that come from inside?
Yeah, in this particular place, yeah. It just kind of evolved from the writing. So, no, nothing. I know just something. Did something stir up in you when you were here again?
I can't do that.
Oh,
I can't, I'm always thinking of something else. Oh, I'm gonna make this like this, or, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so I am envious, or.
What I think is interesting is like, the more we know about Dustin Hoffman now, we know he's a real jerk.
Oh.
So
I
it's
forgot
kind of
about that
interesting,
too.
like you didn't put that in your book, and yet that was way before it all came to light after Me Too.
Mhm. Yeah, I
So
forgot
that's
about
interesting.
that. Well, at least he doesn't do anything for saying that he
Nefarious.
shouldn't to, nefarious toward a woman.
We have a question over here.
So Tom, when your book is made into a movie, who do you see playing Richard Blanc?
You.
I think I'm a little too old. Kind of a bum me. I don't know. I mean, that'd be fun. That'd be a fun moment, if it happens.
Ty wants Timothy Chalamet, of course.
I was just gonna say the exact same thing. Oh my god.
Yeah, my big, I guess if I had a stake in it, it would be that somebody that plays him doesn't have to be a big actor, but that they have to know how to play the game of tennis. That's my big.
Rob Lowe.
So you look at, so if you look at like in Raging Bull, and you see De Niro, he seems like a boxer. You just, you know, and he plays the part inside and out. And I've yet to find a movie where there's someone that can do that in a tennis movie. So to me,
Yeah, I was just
if I
gonna
had
say,
final
what
say, it
are-
would be someone that's an actor that, or is a player that can also act. You know, they pull somebody off of the street.
Are
That
there
would be-
any movies that have tennis as the central plot?
Well, there was a movie called Player or Players from the 70s, and Dean Martin's son played the lead, and he was on the tour. I saw the movie. It's not as bad as you think. And the tennis scenes are really legit. Like, you're like, okay, he looks like he
Well, and
can do this.
also
Yeah.
Vincent, his dad was on that TV show in the
He
'70s,
did match.
and he was a tennis
Yeah,
player.
Vince Van Patten.
Yeah, and he was in a tennis.
But
movie.
he's too old. But he could have done it, Vince Van Patten. But yeah, so there's, you know, there's a, yeah, that would be a fun thing.
So are you adapting it for a screenplay?
Yeah, I've got someone that's interested in it, but they're kind of, I think, waiting for me to adapt it. And then I've got a friend in my neighborhood who's a big screenwriter, and he's read it, and he's like, you definitely need to adapt it, and then it gives me some power. So that, when I'm working on a book right now, but when I finish this draft, that's what I'm gonna do for 6 months, I think. I'm not very good at writing screenplays, but I'm gonna try to turn it into one.
Is that what that means, adapt from book to screenplay?
Yeah, yeah.
What is that process like?
You know, I'm gonna talk to my friend Carl and see what he says, because he just adapted a book, a really great book, a Gary Schneidgard book, called
Super sad.
Super Sad,
True
yes. And it was Showtime, it picked it up, they're gonna do an episodic TV series, and then they just went, I'm like, oh my god, like it won't be easy. But I'm gonna talk to him about like where, you know, what do you think about when it's a novel, and then how, you know, what are the key parts that should fit in it? I don't know.
You've written it quite cinematically, though. I mean, it's a very, it's not a cerebral. It's kind of very visual the way it's written.
Totally.
Yeah, I
A lot
agree.
of movement.
Yeah, and I think, right, so that will work. I think it's just determining, you know, you can't put a whole book into 2 hours. So it's like, where do you start? What do you choose? What exits?
I was going to ask, as a writer, was it hard
Yeah, well, I definitely
get credit.
embodied him in a lot of ways, so it's easy for me to like, on the book I'm working on now, he plays a small role in it, but he comes back to life 20 years later, and his stuff it was weird how it just came right, it was right there. I didn't have to work.
Did he evolve 20 years later?
You know, he did, but now it makes me want to go back and maybe rethink it, that maybe he shouldn't have evolved, because he's got so many issues. Mark, did you have a question?
I just, Osaka and Federer coming out, is the timing just right for you at this moment? He talked
hope
about
so.
mental challenges and things that he's going through and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, at some point it'd be nice if this kind of hit some sort of wave and took off, but who knows? But you're right, it's a great time for when it comes to mental illness, finally.
And sports.
And sports, finally some athletes are able to step forward, even though Naomi's gotten tons of flack, as much support as not,
Yeah.
which is ridiculous. It's when the big names come forward and say, hey, look, I'm feeling pressure at a news conference, you know, I need to step back a while and respecting that. It's like, that's good, we're at a good place. I was thinking too about some of these guys and girls have such a big entourage that I think, like in the old days, the McEnroes and the Connors, I mean, McEnroe definitely, and I think Connors had major mental problems back in the day. I think so. And they didn't have a support system around them to help. And what's neat is I think a lot of the big players, at least you see every day, they've got a nice group of people around them to help keep things balanced. So I'm sure Naomi will find, she seems to have a really great family, a lot of support. I think she'll find her way. You hope so, because she's
But there's a lot
quite
of
a
Richard
talent.
Blancos out there.
Yeah. There was another article.
I mean, kind of like Dex. I didn't mean nice Richard Blancos. I mean, like, she got so much
Yeah,
grief for
from the press, from a lot of people.
from everybody.
Trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just the
I
world.
wonder what
we
Richard
live
would
in.
have done.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Somebody brought up that he should become a coach, like he could be a coach in this second book. It could be kind of funny. Maybe.
He's
I
a
just
little
had
creepy.
Yeah, I just had a bad look when I said that.
Well, that's the second, what's your second book about?
It's so this book, even though I'm now 56 in a couple weeks, it's about a 31-year-old. It took me a long time to write this and to get my craft down. So it's a lot to do with how old I started this book when I was like 35. So the new book is more about middle-aged people. It's about three people, two men and a woman who's kind of in the middle, and they're one's a conservative, and he's from Minnesota, and he's got some issues, but he's also kind of a weird poet, and he's just cheated on his wife, and he's going up north to be with his mom for like comfort, and maybe get back with his old girlfriend. And there's a man from LA who's a movie producer who is a liberal, and he thinks he's doing everything right to make the world a better place, but he's got so many things missing in his life. But he has a house, his family has a house in Madeline Island, and the year before he met this woman there, and they really hit it off. Well, it ends up being this conservative's wife, and so when her husband, when she finds out he's cheated on her for like the last time that she's done, she contacts the guy from California, and they decide to meet and kind of consummate this, cross-coast thing they've been doing. And they're going to Madeline Island, and the husband finds out, so he heads that way. And then the side story, screenwriter, which you'll love, the side story is that the movie producer is trying to get this film made based on this character. So he brings all these people to Madeline Island, his director, a couple big movie stars, Blanco, his wife, and all this is going, and he's trying to get this movie done, and everything's falling apart because he's looking at the Chinese for their investors, and they're screwing him over. So he's desperate, the Hollywood guy's desperate. So all these people are gonna be on the island, and he knows, he doesn't tell the wife, but he knows that Ken, who's the conservative, is on the island, and he might be packing a gun, but he never tells the wife. So then we can just see what happens. I'll just cut off right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
I